So with that, I would like to thank you for your attention. And last but not the least, I would like to acknowledge the wonderful team. Without their effort, their hard work, none of this would have been possible. And also, I would like to thank the UNG20 team for funding this initiative and for supporting us all along. So thank you very much once again.
Yeah. Can you hear me? Can you turn the microphone on? Test, test, test. No? Can you hear me? Yeah, it's on.
Yeah, sure. So how can we share the PowerPoint?
Yes, PPT. I'm question.
Oh, there it is. Now it is working. Okay, thank you.
I'm student.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
Sola. So you've just seen now what geospatial AI can actually do and find, and quite impressive results. But I want to spend the next 10 minutes or so on a question that rather follows up on this. And the question is, what does it take so that results, as we've just seen, can actually be actionable, so that someone does something about that? So it's not working?
Okay. So, thank you. So yeah, now it's better. Did you hear the starting words? No. So I will start again, because I think you couldn't hear me before. Okay, so you have just seen with Sukanya's presentation what geospatial AI can find and do and how impressive the results are. And I want to spend the next 10 minutes or so on an often neglected question that follows up on the results we've just seen. And the question is, what does it take for results like we have just seen to change what someone actually does about it? So how can we actually create agency and impact from it? I'm Kirsten von Elberfeld, and I'm a professor for geography, and I'm working at Highgate in the climate action team. So a lot of research on climate change and land consumption or land degradation is based on a rather comfortable assumption. And the assumption is that information, so data and facts, will increase awareness, and then from this awareness there will result action. So the idea is give people better data, they will understand the data and the problem, and then they will act. But latest evidence from neuroscience and behavioral research shows this is not the case. It's actually vice versa. You have to act in order to believe. So this is happening through something researchers call self-persuasion. And Kristen Meyer's group, you can see the notification there, and if you want to learn something really fascinating, please check it out, because he shows it over and over again that it's really the other way around. People have to act, and then they will start to believe, and their worldviews will change. There's a rather famous biologist, late biologist, who was called E.O. Wilson, and he has put much earlier this same sentiment in a very famous quote. He said, "We are drowning in information while starving for wisdom." And I think it's sadly very true. And we find that when we watch the news every day, because we are informed, but somehow we are not getting any wiser. It's sad, but I find it rather true. And two things follow from this. First, our data on its own will not create action. Data and information alone doesn't help. So the second part of this conclusion is that what's usually not missing is awareness. We are aware, people know the numbers, people know what it is at risk, but it doesn't create action. And they don't need more information on how dire the situation is. They don't have to be more afraid than they already are. So the whole large picture is not enough. So we need to give them something else so that they can act. So this is one example for a large picture data where everybody knows about this, knows about the CO2 concentrations in the atmosphere. And it's scary, it's alarming. I personally am very afraid. But the problem is that fear usually triggers three actions in humans. It's fight, flight, or freeze. And the majority of people is freezing, so not acting. Part of the population is fleeing into denial and denying that anything is amiss. And part of the population is actually acting. But you can see that this leads to polarization, and this is something we also observe a lot in society at the moment. So this is the backbone why Hygit follows a different approach. We don't want to add to this picture. We are building a dashboard with local data and local people so we can ensure usefulness. The idea is that people won't feel detached and alarmed, but they feel empowered to act so that they know where and how to act. So in a nutshell, we want to turn data into something people can actually act on. So land degradation and climate change have a lot in common. For example, they are so-called creeping catastrophes. What does it mean? A, they are human-made, and B, they are slow enough that it seems as if a single day doesn't matter. There's not the big bang where everything changes, and like in a wildfire or flash flood, you have to act now to protect your home. They are slow, they are creeping. They don't look dangerous, although they are. And the most dangerous part is that we don't realize how dangerous they are. So the damage doesn't announce itself, and it accumulates until the decision has already been made for us, and we can't decide anything anymore. But the good news is there's something we can do about this. There's a way out of this dilemma. Local action is fast and it's very effective. So the decisions that actually stop this damage accumulation can be local. A herder, a ministry, a municipality can not only lead by example, but they can make a difference, a real difference. We have heard that in the opening statement today, in the opening ceremony too. So what's the problem is that most Earth observation dashboards show good and robust information, but they stop just there. They stop at the information. They offer high resolution and global data, but they don't bridge towards the local dimension, so people can see how to act. This bridge can be created by working on the dashboards with local people and on solutions together. So even when we build something really, really great, even something like we've just seen before with the global AI, spatial AI, E.O. Wilson would say, oh, this is just another droplet in the sea of information. So to make it work, we need to be working on the tools together so that they can trigger action and impact. And this isn't just a theory for us, so you can see people here working in the real life together on something, and you can transfer this to the digital realm. So people don't want the solution being served to them. They don't want to be told what to do. They want to have something they can argue with, they can push back on, or which they could fit to their needs and also constraints they have. And if I'm honest, I used to find that rather frustrating in the past, because I was a researcher in my ivory tower before I came to Highgate, and we had robust research, we found great stuff, and people would say, oh yeah, that's great what you're doing, but no, we don't really need it. Fine, but, right? And I think now, since I came to Highgate, I really learned a lot, and I think this yes, but is really the starting point, not the end point. So what I learned is that the important question is not how to build the right tool, it's how do we build up know-how to act in a process that sees each partner as expert for their own living environment, because we are all experts for the environment we are living in. And people are capable, more than capable, to find the right solutions for them if, together. So I'm a researcher for nearly all my adult life, and I can honestly tell you that since I'm at Highgate and we're working together with partners in workshops, many workshops, online and in person, and I've never learned as much as in these workshops when discussing with partners and with NGOs and learning from them much more than there's ever to be found in textbooks. So what we did at Highgate was building the so-called Climate Action Navigator. So far it has 7 assessment tools, as you can see listed there. For example, the CO2 budget, heating emissions, traffic emissions, emissions from land use and land cover change, and land consumption, to name only a few. Our goal is to build usable and useful tools, and it's not necessarily our goal to have a dashboard. That's not our endpoint, it's the starting point. And wherever we have partners and the database for it, we try to be global with the tools, but you can see that we don't always achieve it yet. All of this is work in progress. It's not a finished answer. The dashboard is not what we want to deliver. The deliverable is the thing, the method behind it, and I want to spend the rest of my time explaining the method behind it. Why do we think it's not the dashboard which is important, but the method? Because we don't believe that dashboards or maps or data are the success measures for projects. They are the starting point to create impact, and a project is successful when our data and information is being used and impact is being created. So our project will be successful if the decisions made based upon that are successful. So, because what really counts is impact and not our output. Our output is, so to say, somewhat irrelevant. So how do we put this into practice? How do we co-create? Most importantly, we start as equals. Partners are experts for their living environment, and they bring the question and they bring the local knowledge. What we then bring in is our methods, like Geospatial AI, which Sukanya has just presented. The first steps then are ideas incubation workshops. We are using these to turn an open problem into a first prototype, and this prototype is a rough prototype, but it's a rough prototype on purpose, because then we can work on that together. And people can still argue with the prototype and also with us. And then the iteration starts. Partners test the tool, they criticize it, we then reshape it, and most importantly, the tool is not finished when we say it's finished when our partners say it's finished. So, and the process is the same for an NGO, for a municipality, a ministry, or a research team. So the method stays the same, but really what changes is the product every time. In several cases, we have seen that globally applicable tools means offering a so-called living product, so it has to be changeable still. For example, it is really highly context dependent on whether you think your city is walkable. Walkability is one of our tools. So walkability in Lagos in Nigeria means something completely different from walkability in New Delhi, for example, in India, or walkability in Heidelberg, where we are working. So context matters. And the solutions that are needed in the context will vary every time, or very often at least. And the same is true for land degradation. Data, but even more so the solutions, cannot be prescribed, but need to be co-created. So I brought you one concrete example. This about land consumption. We co-created this with the WWF Austria, and they are working hard against land consumption rates, high land consumption rates in Austria. And doing this, they face several challenges. The first challenge is that they don't have a data set with which they could validate the official data set. And the second challenge is that it's very difficult to break down land consumption in different sectors. For example, land consumption in residential area, or for residential areas, industrial areas, or for transportation. And the third problem is a major problem too, because every country measures land consumption in a different way. So there's no way to compare land consumption rates internationally. So WWF's main intention when cooperating with us was to explore new lines of argumentation and to explore also new data sources which they could use, so that they have new perspectives and reasoning. This is what we built with them. And the result is still work in progress, but you can see here the result for land consumption in Ulaanbaatar. So displaying the results as a so-called tree map on the right-hand side is their idea. Breaking it down into different sectors is what they need. The categories is what they are interested in. And we didn't hand them over our analysis. We built it with them, workshop after workshop after workshop. And I think this is really important because this will make the tool actionable for them as soon as it is finished. So, but of course, I mean, we are a research institution and we also have our own ideas, what might be interesting or what might pose a challenge for humanity or society. And one of them is assessing carbon emissions from land use and land cover change. And right now, it's a Germany-only prototype. As you can see here, the example is from a Tesla factory being built, or that has been built near Berlin. And it needs a partner to be transferred to different contexts, to other contexts, to ask new questions or different questions. And maybe the partner for carbon flows from land use and land cover change is in this room right now, and you are interested in this, and we could scale this up to other areas. So, according to the experiences we made with our project so far, there are a couple of key principles that are really enabling co-creation. One is openness, so open data, but also mental openness. And actually, which is not there, it's open and free, so nobody has to pay for that, neither for working with us nor for assessing or accessing the results. Transparency, that it's global in principle, or at least can be global in principle. That it's useful and usable, and as I mentioned before, that it is a living product. And I think with these key principles that are guiding our work, we hope or we think that our work will really make a difference. So, if you're working on land degradation or on climate change mitigation or adaptation, we want to help getting the most out of your work. So the idea is that your work is not only providing information and data and is very insightful, but that it's always also creating impact and that people can act on that. We do not primarily want to produce a dashboard like the Climate Action Navigator. It's a great tool, but what we want is to help people generate impact, to help them to make a difference. Our contact details are on the slide. Me and my colleagues are here in the room and at the COP for the remainder of the week, so please feel free to contact us and also to ask questions now if we have time and if you have questions. Thank you very much. Oh yeah, you have a question or two questions, or maybe I take the second microphone. I would do ladies first if it's, oh. Oh. Mm-hmm. Oh. Yeah.
How can youth participate in your idea and contribute to our land?
Mm-hmm. Okay. So sorry, once again.
How can youth people contribute to your plan in the future?
New people or young people? Or?
Young people.
Okay, I will come back to you.
Yes, thank you. So I listened to the presentation, especially Lila is what I'm interested in. So I'm from the Caribbean, and I work with SIDS, basically. So our islands are basically 350 to 500 kilometers square. So what is the potential for the application of Lila within the Caribbean region?
Okay.
We know the issues we have with high-resolution data. So we are just trying to develop our own resolution products in terms of land cover and land productivity, right? Well, I represent PISLM. We work with Apacheta within the Caribbean. But what is the potential for Lila to be applied within a region such as ours, working with SIDS?
Okay, thank you. So I will come back to your question. So young people can work with us like any other people and get in touch with us. I can give you my contact details too. And then, bring in your perspective and we can try to build something together which is especially useful maybe or applicable to, for young people or important for young people. Maybe later. So, okay, we can talk.
Okay, coming to the Leela tool for the Caribbeans, I'm sure there's a lot of potential, but that has to be investigated using the different data layers that are available for that particular region. So we can definitely take this forward after this session, and we can, talk about it, connect, and take this further. Thanks. Sorry. Okay, sorry.
So, sorry for interrupting the interesting questions, but now we will continue with a panel discussion with our speakers and two more that will bring interesting perspectives to the discussion. And after a brief set of questions that I have prepared for them, I will open the floor for questions from everyone. Is that okay? So, in addition to Kirsten and Sukanya, who you already know, we have here Dr. Bulgama Densambu, the program director of Rangeland Research and Development at Green Gold, the Mongolian Rangeland Research Center, who was our partner from the beginning of the project and guided us to make our results relevant for the country. In addition, we have Devashri Niraula, who is an environmental scientist and an expert on remote sensing and GIS, that is also a researcher at the G20 Global Land Initiative, who also was involved from the beginning of the project and brought us here. So thank you so much for participating in our panel discussion. To begin, I want to ask something to Sukanya. You showed us how modern geo-AI techniques are flexible enough that they can be tailored to the specific situation and context of a country and a region, which allows making the results relevant for the local situation. So what were the most interesting aspects of the geology and ecology of Mongolia that you took into account during this work?
Yeah, there were, of course, many different aspects which we learned, through interaction with the local stakeholders, with Bulgama, who, and also by reading some very interesting facts about Mongolia. I mean, one interesting story that I could share, Bulgama told us that, it's not the problem that there's no rain. When there is water, and when it does rain, even though the precipitation seems very low as compared to global average, there are still flash floods that are happening in a lot of these grassland areas that last, so there's a lot of water accumulation that happens for up to few hours, and then the water completely disappears. So it's not that the water is not there, it is just that it's not harvested at the right time, and it just disappears. So this is a very local, very very sensitive ecosystem with very special demands and features. So we of course had to take this into account, and it was very surprising. And also, I think what I showed earlier, that the greenness, how it changes so rapidly, as response to rainfall over the years, and you cannot use that as a degradation metric. So every land, I think, has its own challenges, and own demands. So you can look, satellite imagery can show you the pixels, it can show you what a land looks like, but you cannot just use that, for making practical interventions or for restoration that makes sense for the local.
Really move the data, existing data, to the action. I am a person who was doing the research on the rangeland degradations, where is degrading, where are the hotspots, and what can we do, whether is it recoverable or not. And then in the same time also we are working with the local herders and local officials who are responsible for this whole rangeland management issues. And then they are working on the planning, that how to rest, where to rest, and then where are the key the problems, And then as I see that your product, so this map is very relevant, because even though it doesn't show that what is the degradation level and how is it going, it's more the short-term information. So it's showing that what is exactly is going on this particular ecosystem right now. And because, you know, the rangeland management planning is usually for 1 year, and then usually it's planned the previous year, end of the previous year. And then sometimes we are facing problems that we cannot implement that because for that year, depending on the precipitation, how it was the rainfall in the beginning of the summer or in the middle of the summer, sometimes they cannot implement this rotational grazing management. So for that case, I find it is quite useful that it looks very green, and then also the map will show that where are the spots where we can accumulate the water and then use it for the certain time as a water point, you know. And then we can use this information, and then we can update our the management plan, you know, because as we were mentioning earlier that the summer and fall grazing area is quite busy, and it's having more degradation because that's the only open water where everybody is coming and settling there until the vegetation is senescing, you know. So that's why that we will have a more opportunity to direct the rotational grazing and resting through those short-term water points, right? And also using this information on this greenness. So it looks green, but maybe we can't define that what plants are there, what is degradation, but we can see that there is the grazing opportunity. So this way we can update the plan and make it more liable, the plan, yeah.
Thank you very much. And Devashri, you are an expert on this field as well. So could you share a few examples of other situations in which remote sensing or AI analysis have actually changed decisions about land management on the ground? And also, perhaps some of the factors that have limited that happening more often, like why AI and modeling approaches not always are successful in shaping policy?
Thank you so much, colleagues. First of all, the very interesting case study that we saw of Mongolia, that is one of the examples that I would say, not of implementation, but of basically showcasing what can be done. There, for everybody, you heard that I do represent the UNCCD Secretariat, so I'll give some of the examples from the UNCCD Secretariat. In the room, you'll see the G20 Global Land Initiative that I represent right behind you, the pavilion space, and we also have IDRO, which is our second pavilion space. These are the two, let's say, institutes or two platforms that have showcased some of these examples. I'll just give an example of IDRO, the International Drought Resilience Observatory, where within their platform, you can go inside and also, please, colleagues, you can actually go inside and also look at their beam, which is very interesting, where they're showcasing how they have mapped and have case studies of different countries and their methodology. Super interesting. But what I think is more interesting than that is the fact that they have a work stream on the forecasting that emphasizes preparedness, that emphasizes forecasting, that emphasizes risk as well. And also there is adaptation, where they're looking at how countries can adapt. So that is one of the examples where you can take a direct link with, let's say, a implementation in a country. In the G20 Global Land Initiative, this year we are in this COP itself on the 27th, on the Food Security Day, we are trying to launch the RAISE mapping tool. This is a mapping tool of UNCCD that will be launched. RAISE mapping tool is mapping opportunity for restoration for businesses, specifically where return on investment for businesses is high, and mapping it in pixel level. It's challenging, but that's one step to first understand where economic activity is high, where yield might be high, understanding the soil type, understanding the water usage, understanding the community's level of coping capacity or adaptation in general, putting it together in pixel level and trying to understand or give a picture of where restoration would make more sense in terms of rangeland and cropland for food security. So this is another example, but UNCCD in general, we work specifically with country parties and we work specifically with policy. So none of these initiatives that I told you about happens without country parties' engagement or countries' engagement, where these are the countries that come to us, request for, let's say, a tool or a platform, or actually like how IDRO and G20 came about as well, is countries coming together, discussing, understanding the importance, and then bringing about these initiative and actionable items where technology, where remote sensing and GIS, understanding in a bird's eye lens how any of these environmental issues are, was one of the major, let's say, issues or one of the major outcomes that came out of the decision that led to the growth of these initiatives. Something that was a question from the floor, which is engaging youth. And I would like to bring the engagement of youth towards what G20 Global Land Initiative is doing, and potentially any other future work that we do together, is youths are heavily engaged as citizen scientists, as ecopreneurs, as if you're in media and content creation, that is another offering that we have under G20 Global Land Initiative. We give trainings to a lot of youths in different sectors and in different aspects. So youth is the core, as our communications head, Wagaki, always says, we are catering to Gen Zs, and we are catering to that generation to empower them in using technology, in using AI, machine learning. So that is one of the, let's say, opportunity for young people. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So part of the power of AI is that it allows you to make assessments at scale. But Kirsten, you showed us and argued very well that it is essential to incorporate local knowledge throughout the entire process. So if it requires so much work to organize these workshops with finding the local partners and engage them, how can we scale the power of AI while at the same time retaining the local knowledge?
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, that's a tricky question. I don't think that you need locals from every locality, from every municipality. But of course, for example, when we are working with the WWF in Austria, what they are telling us is applicable to Germany, is applicable for Austria, mostly, maybe not so much for the US, maybe even less for African countries or Asian countries. So what we need is finding typical partners, let's call it like that, and then putting the product out there, like the assessments we make, whilst making clear it's a living product, so that we are always keeping this inviting character, that if you find something there which is not applicable to your region, reach out to us and we try to make it so. Of course, it's not always super fast, so an AI will give you a quick answer, and this is a bit more cumbersome, but the gain you get from that is that it's actionable, that you can work with it, and that you know that's the problem, but you know where to tackle the problem and how to tackle the problem. And I think, and also the feedback from our partners shows that that's a big asset, because there are a lot of dashboards out there and many of them are not used.
I would Also, just to add to that is, when we talk about scaling of AI, I think if it's done responsibly, like Kristen said, through co-creation process or by integration of the local knowledge, like what we have shown for this particular project, then it also increases, the confidence with which the people accept these results. And this is very much possible now with AI, because AI technologies are getting more and more flexible. And it is possible to, integrate this local knowledge and scale at the same time. So earlier, people always had inhibitions of trusting a lot of, data that was coming out. But because we make this flexible and integrative, it is, I feel that, especially like what we have done, the results that we have gotten out, if with expertise, local expertise, it is possible to reach there. So it's good to be open about this as well.
So those were all my questions. So now I open the floor for questions. If anyone else wants to ask someone. Oh, thank you, Kristen.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. My name is Garam, and I'm from Delhi. While I completely understand that, scaling AI is, let's say, the future, my problem with AI is that AI is technically very biased, especially when we're talking about local knowledge. And when we want to scale local knowledge via AI, it simply means that you would have to employ people at data centers who are now inputting, labeling knowledge, which we, let's say, call local knowledge. My another problem with that is most of these people who are usually employed to basically input these data, especially in India, let's say, are very vulnerable women who are not being paid enough, who are not being covered, let's say, their health insurance. There's nothing that they are being given. And I feel that while we're looking at scaling AI, because yes, it is important for future, I just don't see how it becomes sustainable in nature. And while that's not exactly what, let's say, CCD does, or not is exactly related to rangelands or pastoralists, but I think that deep down when we're looking at scaling AI, you will eventually have to work with these women who are already very vulnerable, and then scaling AI through them eventually impacts them further. So I'm just trying to find where do we find the balance here?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think we have to think a little broad in this term. So also how we define scalable AI. So when I mean that AI is scalable, I don't mean just create one map with, as you said, a lot of data is very biased. So just if we take example of the land cover map, most of the data is coming from certain countries, and of course you then see a bias, and then you see that it completely misses the point when you try to generate the map for Mongolia or for other places in the world. But the idea is to use the flexibility. So if you develop a technology that is scalable, like what we did, so there's an innovative model out there that combines different data streams, it is scalable. What we mean is that there is going to be that input where a local would define that these are the classes that are relevant for me in this area. But now it's an automated process, and then you further generate the final results. But you have the AI that is capable of scaling there. And yeah, so there are ways to make it to do the scaling up in a more responsible manner. And that's where I also think open data and open methods play a very important role. And unfortunately, in the field of AI, a lot of people who even came with an intention of being open, like open AI itself, they are not open anymore. So I think that way we are very unique as an organization at Highgate, where we are still promoting open data. And I think it's important to think in terms of these open models and make that available for people so that they could scale it responsibly for their own regions as well. But it is possible, but it's just that, yeah, one would have to consider all these options.
Yes, so my question is pretty related to the question earlier. So as you know, Mongolia, nature itself is borderless, Between Kazakhstan and Mongolia, we share a region called Altai mountain range. And it's both our responsibilities to restore and protect these areas. So my question is probably from the policymaking perspective, right? So how do you see countries scale and deploy Geo AI innovations such as yours, should we consider more of a coordinated regional cooperation where funding and resources can be pulled together and also data, right? Or should there be thousands of hyper-local initiatives that relies on the local knowledge?
Yeah, so actually just like what I mentioned before, I think if we have open models and open data, then everybody could benefit from it. So then the borders don't matter anymore. But of course, because we would like that there would be local knowledge that is integrated into these models as much as possible. Of course, one can always get better and better with more local knowledge. But at least to make maps that are accurate enough to kind of, to map the restoration interventions effectively. So for that, I think it's the way you design your models that if it reflects the local realities, which is what was our intention with this project, we have shown that it is possible to do that, and then to make these models open for everyone to use so that this could be adopted or taken by different communities and people. So it is, yes, again, very much possible to do that.
I would add to that, I don't think it's an either-or question, it's both. Because models, also AI models, are always a simplification of reality. And sometimes, especially with AI, at the moment, a harsh oversimplification of reality. And especially what I call the living environment of people. AI, I don't see that AI will capture that in any near future, and I even think it's good. And so I think I wouldn't want to make up a contrast between AI and local knowledge and all this wisdom which is out there. I think if, like Sutakanya said, it's open and free, not closed and expensive at the moment, as in the moment, then I would say you can make something out of it together. Mm-hmm.
In terms of policy, taking it towards that direction, because I think they covered specifically the tech part quite well, I would be a bit of a devil's advocate in this context. I don't think we need to integrate AI in everything. I don't think AI is necessary in everything. As of now, it might not be necessary in everything. However, the point that you mentioned is to have, these little different platforms within the country, or let's say a robust, let's say, tool like Lila. Like, what is the best approach, or how do we merge these together? One of the examples that I immediately thought of is I come from Nepal. Nepal has a very interesting national disaster risk reduction portal. This is nationally what they have. And within the portal, they have like little, let's say, sub-web pages, or let's say sub-tools like Lila, where today, if there's a disaster somewhere, police can go and look at the extent of loss and damage and report it. There is the ambulance that looks at how many people went to the hospital. There is another little, let's say, tool with hydrometeorological station that tells you about the condition of the weather condition at that time or that moment, which is all pulled together in this disaster risk reduction portal. What I'm getting to at is in a policy lens, things can be very different. And as a grassroots lens, things can be very different. Right now, we're talking about restoration. But the same data, same information, for example, your precipitation and temperature, these two precursors, or even soil type, these can be very differently used for a construction related work, even for policymakers. But these are the precursors and indicators that they use. However, this data is already provided by the Hydro and Meteorological Station. I think these little portals or little sites are very important. They're important. However, let's say tools like Leela is also very interesting because they give a very good insight or very good understanding externally, especially because these are scientists, to then use some of the methodologies. I know specific countries, like for example, Mongolia itself, with consultation with other platforms, other tools that we have, they're very open in using any other tool that the world has to look at, let's say, best practices and see how they can integrate, how they can improve. But I know that there are countries that are a bit more, let's say, conservative about the type of tools that they let in their country. And it's usually a common practice between what a country is specifically looking for and asking for. So there's no, like, let's say, set rule in terms of policy making. However, if we are just to use a blanketed approach and a international, let's say, I'm not calling Leela an international platform, but I'm just saying, if we are just to use, let's say, a platform that is made somewhere in US, but it is for Mongolia, it doesn't make sense. For me personally, it doesn't make sense. It would have rather made sense if, let's say, it come from local knowledge and local understanding, and perhaps with consultation, as what they did with our local partners, having a local consultation, local understanding, maybe even come and do ground testing, validate their data set. I would rather prefer that than, or maybe even developed in Mongolia by itself. Personally, I would rather prefer that, and this is also what UNCCD pushes, is to push what is locally available, but to also integrate some of these scientists and their methodologies together. Thank you. Do you have anything to?
So the next session will start in 5 minutes, and we wanted to leave a little buffer between them so you can stretch your legs, etc. But if you have more questions, we are super happy to continue the conversation informally and with a coffee or just outside with the fresh air. So if that is okay, I thank you very much. Let's continue talking afterwards, and thank you very much for your attention.
COP17 цөлжилттэй тэмцэх тухай нэгдсэн үндэстний байгууллагын конвенцийн талуудын 17 дугаар баг хурал Монгол улсад анх удаа зохион байгуулагдах гэж байна. Энэхүү баг хурлыг бид зохион байгуулснаар Монгол улсын хэмжээнд уур амьсгалын өөрчлөлтөд дасан зохицсон үндэстэн болно. Хөдөө аж ахуйн салбар бүрэн эдийн засагжих боломж нээгдэнэ. Байгаль орчны төлөв байдал сайжирна. Газрын үн цэн нэмэгдэнэ. Уламжлалаа дээдэлсэн зах зээлд суурилсан хөгжлийн загвар бүрдэнэ. Ой болон усны нөөцийн сан нэмэгдэх болно. Харин олон улсын хэмжээнд хүлэмжийн хийн шингээлтийг олон улсад арилждаг орн болох. Евраз, ялангуяа төв болон зүүн хойд Азийн голлох тоглогч болох. Олон улсад байгаль орчин хүнс хөдөө аж ахуйн асуудлыг хосолсон 10 жилийн хөтөлбөр хэрэгжиж эхэлнэ. Далайд гарцгүй хөгжиж буй орнуудын хөгжлийн чиг баримжааг тодорхойлогч болно. Байгаль орчны 2 болон олон талт хамтын ажиллагааны 2050 он хүртэлх дайны дэлхийн зорилтуудад хувь нэмрээ оруулах юм а. COP17 баг хуралд нэгдсэн үндэстний байгууллагын гишүүн 197 орны 10,000 орчим зочид төлөөлөгчид чуулснаар Улаанбаатар хотын зочид буудал, хоол хүнс, тээвэр, үйлчилгээний салбарт хөрөнгө оруулалт хийгдэнэ. Монгол улсын аялал жуулчлал, ахуйн үйлчилгээний салбарын бизнес эрхлэгчдийн орлогод эергээр нөлөөлнө. Дэлхийн нийтийн урт хугацааны өвийг үлдээхэд нэгдсэн үндэстний байгууллагын гишүүн орнууд хамтдаа нэгдэх болно. Дашрамт дурдахад өнгөрөгч 2024 оны COP16 баг хурлыг Саудын Араб улс зохион байгуулснаар нийт гаргасан зардлаа 4 дахин нэмэгдүүлж, эх орныхоо байгаль, бүтээн босголтын санхүүжилтийг нэмэгдүүлж чадсан юм. Тиймээс Монгол улс COP17 баг хуралд урт хугацааны бодлогын санаачлагуудаа танилцуулж, хөрөнгө босгох, байгаль орчны салбарт урт хугацааны чанартай төслүүдийг эхлүүлэх боломжтой.
Эх байгалаа сэргээж, итгэл найдвараа бадраая. COP17 Улаанбаатар, Монголд 5 тайморил.